All right, so today we are going to focus on the self-actualization part of the EQ assessment. So if you did take the EQ assessment, you're going to be able to see exactly what your score is. And if you did not, that's okay, because this is actually really good for you to know whether you know your EQ or not. But here is what I will tell you, whether you took your EQ assessment or not, if you're here on this call, your self-actualization is high enough to even get you here. Okay, because self-actualization is the part of our emotional intelligence that is the pursuit of meaning and self-improvement, which ultimately means you have some sort of recognition that there's something in your life you can work on or grow in. And that is what helps us be pushed to action. So you're doing that. So it's a big kudos to you, no matter what your EQ score is. Um, the thing that I want to start off by saying is that we live in a society with obviously a lot of adult bodies walking around, but an adult body does not equate to automatic emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, that those are skills that we have to grow within ourselves, and it doesn't really grow just because we grow into an adult body. It's a very conscious decision. So last week we talked about the 95 versus 5% concept. And when it comes to self-actualization, it's another big piece of that 5% showing up. Okay. So I'm going to get into really what this looks like. So that way it's easier for you to raise your self-actualization. And let me also turn my phone on airplane. Okay. Now, if you've done one of my free trainings, you probably have a little bit of foundational understanding about this. I'm going to go a tiny different angle and more in depth with this whole concept, but it's an important one because if whenever you're navigating your life, you can refer back to this and just have it in the forefront of your mind, it's going to help you so much when you are navigating, varying emotions, varying challenges. So the important thing with self-actualization and overall our emotional awareness, our emotional intelligence is asking ourselves who is showing up the most in our day-to-day. So here's how I like to think of this. We have three versions of ourselves that will show up at any given moment with whatever we're faced with or any given day. And it also varies just based on what's happening in the day. So they can bump, back and forth. So I like to think of it as we have an inner toddler that lives inside of us. We have an inner teen that lives inside of us, and we have an emotionally intelligent adult. Notice how this doesn't just say adult. It's a very specific way that we show up in our adult body with emotional intelligence. So I'm going to get into that in a second. But the way that I like to think of the toddler version of ourself is raw, unfiltered emotion. If you have raised a toddler, if you are raising a toddler, then whenever they feel feelings or emotions, it is so raw and unpredictable and just there. Okay. They don't care who's around. They don't care if you're out in public. They don't care if it's embarrassing to you. They don't care because all they know is I feel an emotion in my body. I don't know what to do with that emotion yet. And so it's just going to come out authentically. Okay. So it's often unregulated. They really have this need as toddlers and even our inner toddler self that I'm referring to, it has this need and desire to be seen. So oftentimes whenever you see a child melting down, who do they want? They want the adult, right? They want to be seen and acknowledged, whether it's for the adult to say like, yeah, I see that you're mad, or yeah, you're having a tantrum, or it's to comfort in those moments and really acknowledge their feelings. So the toddler version of ourself is very similar. It's going to be those moments where we're having emotion, and whether or not we feel those emotions is going to be up to one of these two versions of ourselves. So that brings me to the teen. The teen version of us is, I like to say, like when ego kind of shows up. Okay. So a lot of times what the teen version of us will look like is emotionally avoidant or completely consumed by emotion. It's a lot of ego driven actions, so like protective mechanisms, our ego is not a bad thing. Like we don't want to hate this version of ourselves or totally despise this version of ourselves, but ego really comes into play just meaning that it is the version of ourself that is in full self-protection mode, which often means I tap out from my feelings, I don't feel my feelings, I don't want us to feel uncomfortable. Like I just don't want any of that discomfort in what I'm feeling or what I'm experiencing in life. Okay. So we often seek comfort and avoid discomfort. And oftentimes the teen version of ourself will internalize and harbor feelings. So when you are in a state where you know that you're buffering a lot and you're like, okay, every time I'm stressed, I tend to drink alcohol, or every time I feel a feeling I don't like, I go eat, or I scroll on social media, or I binge a lot of TV, or I shop online and order a bunch of things on Amazon I maybe don't really need. Like there's all of these buffering mechanisms. And oftentimes, if you are a buffer or when you notice yourself buffering, it is the teen showing up in your decision making. And it's often because of emotions that she doesn't want this little toddler version to really be expressive of. Okay. So can everybody else hear me? Okay. Okay, Carrie, I think it's your audio because everybody else is shaking yes. Okay, so then we have the emotionally intelligent adult. Okay, again, highlighting this. And this is the version of ourself that understands emotions and our emotional reaction. So our self-awareness is present. It is the version of us that leans in, allows emotions to be there, holds space for our own emotions, can hold space for other people's emotions because we don't push it down within ourselves. We see areas of improvement and we actually work on those areas rather than just pretend that they're not there or pretend we've got, all this time in the world to address the things that are not working. And we problem solve. Like it's a really good version of us that has the ability to say, okay, something's not working. How am I going to get what I need? So problem solving really comes into play when we are practicing our emotionally intelligent adult self. And most important of all, we do not fear emotion. So the big problem with or like where people lack emotional intelligence, it's mostly like I don't want to feel certain feelings. I don't like the way that it feels. So for instance, I coach a lot of people on anxiety, right? I don't like having all of this anxiety. It does not feel good to me to have all of this anxiety. And really, anxiety is a good indicator that there's actually other emotions you've shoved down for quite some time that you don't want out. And that is the product of the teen, right? She is like, so there's the toddler that's been feeling maybe disappointment, fear, uncertainty, sadness, defeat. And the teen comes in and says, we're not going to feel those things. Okay, because there are solutions, and the solution is all you need is your little pacifier. And the pacifier is like you need alcohol, you need a cigarette, you need weed, you need social media, you need TV, you need shopping, you need food. Like you just need something to feel better. And I'm going to give you the pacifier for it. And so I like to metaphorically think of this as every time we feel a feeling, if you just imagine like your adult self standing on a mountain, okay, or not even a mountain, like just standing maybe 100 feet away or 50 feet away. What typically happens is the toddler will have emotion, okay, and it's the equivalent of being like, I really want to tell the adult about this. I'm feeling a lot of feelings. I really want to express like what's going on for me because it just feels so heavy. And so they start running towards the adult. And then all of a sudden, the teen trips the toddler. And they're like, absolutely not. We are not going to go tell the adult. We do not need to get them involved. Like, we can fix this on our own. We're strong. We don't need to feel our feelings. We can shove it all down. We can handle it. This is not a problem. Let's eat, let's drink, let's do all of these things. So that's the behavior of the teen. So if you have been in a place in your life where you're like, I feel like I always have to be strong. I feel like, I'm not allowed to have a breakdown. I just feel like I'm overwhelmed a lot of times by a lot of emotions. It's probably the teen that's doing a lot of the leading in your life currently. And here's the thing too, what makes it challenging is that when this is the version that we're living in, it impacts everything, right? Like when your teen is the one ruling your life, it impacts money you can be making, career options, promotions, ways that you communicate with people, relationships with your partner, relationships with your kids, with your family member, with friends, relationship with yourself and your confidence, like self-regard, like we talked about from the very beginning. It impacts everything when this one is in the driver's seat. And here's what's interesting is that it's not even just you, right? Or not even just me. It's like the people that we interact with all have these versions within themselves also. So have you ever had the experience like maybe you're trying to express your emotions to a partner or to your parents or to a sibling or even a friend, and they just feel like cold to it, almost like emotionally unavailable to hold space for it. They're like, I don't understand why you feel upset, or you're making a big deal out of nothing, or they dismiss your emotion. In those moments, it's their teen showing up, right? It's the ego of, I don't know how to process and feel my own feelings, let alone hold space for yours. So I'm so used to being in this version of myself, I literally do not have the capacity for anything that you're telling me. So if you've ever felt like you've come up against a wall against the people that you love, and you're like, God, why can't they hold space for me? Why don't they see me? Why is it so hard to communicate with them? Why did they dismiss me? It's often because they have no awareness of this yet. They're living in the teen, and self-actualization may not be a priority to them at this time or ever. And that is also why it's so important to be in spaces where people are working on this kind of stuff, because it helps you further step into this version of yourself and actually feel like it's safe to do so, that you don't have to be in survival as the teen and you don't have to be crying out for help as the toddler. Make sense? Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about what this kind of looks like. So, before EQ is a priority for us, most adults will emotionally go between or live between their teen and their inner child. So it really looks like an internal battle between our inner child, just again, wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, wanting the feelings to be acknowledged, and the teen being like, absolutely not. And the way that I think of it is that they are in the driver's seat of your life. So at some point, like someone is driving the car day to day in your life. Someone is driving the car. It's either the emotionally intelligent adult, the teenager, or the child. And for most of us, before we're aware of any of this, it's usually the teen that's driving the car into the future. And the visual I like to give myself, even for my own life or even my clients, is imagine this preteen, okay, she's 12 or 13. She should not be in the driver's seat of a car. She does not have a license or a permit or anything like that. She's texting and driving, and she's the one trying to drive you into the future that you want. It's going to be messy. The toddler's not even in a car seat. They're like running all around everywhere. And we really need to be like, hey, we need the emotionally intelligent adult to like push them to safety and be in the seats they're supposed to be in as passengers, and then let the emotionally intelligent adult drive. And so your emotionally intelligent adult, AKA what I refer to as your highest self, must be invited into your daily life as if it's a priority, okay? Because this is how you are actually going to make sure she sticks around for most of your decisions and your daily life, as opposed to switching in and out of the teen and the child in all of your decisions. And so this is with anything. Like when you think of any goals that you have, when you're like, I quit on myself, I'm not consistent, I don't do what I know I should be doing, I don't ask for help, all of the things that actually keep you from your goals, it's this little teenager. We don't hate her. We don't, want to be ugly towards her, but we just need her to feel like she can be safe enough in order for our emotionally intelligent adult to really step in more and more and more and more. Okay. Because everybody has their place. And even 8 years in and doing a lot of this work, my teen and my inner child still show up, as will yours. It's like, how long are we going to allow that to happen? That's the biggest thing. How long are we going to allow that to happen in this situation? And make sure that they are not actually creating results we're not going to be happy with. Because a lot of times it'll come from like trauma or, things we haven't healed, things we haven't acknowledged. So Self-actualization is the desire to meet and ultimately embody the most empowering version of yourself. So again, whether you took the EQ assessment or not, the fact that you're even on this call shows that your self-actualization is high enough to recognize, you know what, there's probably some area of my life that I can grow, and I want to do that for myself. So it's kudos to every single person on this call just for that reason alone. It is the commitment of helping your inner child and your inner teen feel safe enough to be in that passenger seat of the car, okay, which is ultimately the capacity to navigate what the teen or child has been afraid of, which is ultimately emotion. They've been afraid to feel emotions. Okay. So I want you to just think about this for a minute and think about where this might be showing up in your life. You know, what goals do you maybe have for yourself? What things are you wanting to work on or improve? What challenges do you have in your life? Those are things to ask for coaching on. And if you feel feelings like, oh my God, I'm afraid to raise my hand, or I feel embarrassed, or you can hear almost your inner teen going, anything we get coaching on will probably be seen as stupid, or Macie, you'll think it's not good coaching, or whatever. If you see that happening right now, just know she's driving your car, and you don't want her driving the car. You want the adult to be like, I feel a feeling and I'm going to step up and ask for exactly what I need. So what I'd like to ask is that you think for a second, if anybody wants coaching, if you've had coaching in the past, maybe just take a few minutes to keep your hand down. I want to try and get to people who have maybe not had the opportunity to get coached. But ultimately raise your hand for what you need, invite that emotionally intelligent adult to come forward, and anything that you need coaching on, there's no rules on what it has to be as far as what you get coaching on. You can get coaching on anything, especially if you see these different versions of yourself showing up and you're like, yep, my teen or my inner child is trying to sabotage me a little bit and I don't like it. Okay. All right. So let me stop recording.